If it wasn't for my daughter's persistence, I probably wouldn't be here today to tell you this story, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that statement might be the most important thing you hear all week. My name is Sarah, I'm 68 years old, and what I'm about to share with you didn't just shock me, it completely changed how I think about health, family, and the lies we tell ourselves when we're too proud to admit we might need help. But before I tell you what the doctors found, let me paint you a picture of just how stubborn I was, because I guarantee some of you watching this right now are being just as stubborn as I was. Picture this: a 65-year-old woman who prided herself on never being sick, never complaining, never being what she called one of those people who constantly talked about their aches and pains. That was me 3 years ago. I had this image of myself as someone who was tough, independent, someone who didn't need doctors poking around looking for problems that weren't there. I was the type of person who would literally Google symptoms before admitting I needed to see a professional. Sound familiar? Keep watching, because this story is about to take a turn that will make you question everything you think you know about taking care of yourself. For 3 solid years, and I mean 3 solid years, my daughter Emma had been what I called harassing me about getting a comprehensive medical checkup. Every single phone call started the same way. "Hi Mom, how are you feeling? When was your last doctor's visit?" Every visit to my house included the same conversation. Every birthday card came with a note about scheduling an appointment. I'm talking about relentless, consistent, loving nagging that would make a telemarketer jealous. And my response? I had it down to a science. "Emma, honey, I feel fine. I don't have time for that nonsense. Doctors just want to run expensive tests to find problems that don't exist. I'm not hypochondriac like Mrs. Johnson next door. If something was really wrong, don't you think I'd know?" I had an arsenal of responses, and I deployed them with the precision of someone who had been perfecting the art of avoidance for decades. But here's what I didn't realize at the time, and this is crucial for everyone watching. I wasn't just avoiding doctors, I was avoiding reality. Let me tell you about the signs I was ignoring, because I bet some of you are ignoring the exact same things right now, and it's going to chill you to your core how obvious they seem in retrospect. First, there was the fatigue, not just regular tiredness, but the kind of exhaustion where climbing a single flight of stairs left me breathless. But did I think that was concerning? Of course not. I'm getting older, I told myself. This is normal. Then there was the weight loss. My clothes were getting looser, my wedding ring was sliding around on my finger, and people were commenting on how thin I looked. But instead of being concerned, I was almost proud, finally losing that extra weight I've been carrying. I thought the loss of appetite should have been a red flag the size of Texas. Foods I had loved my entire life suddenly tasted bland or made me nauseous. I went from being someone who enjoyed cooking and eating to someone who had to force myself to finish half a sandwich. My husband noticed. My neighbors noticed. My daughter definitely noticed during our video calls. But me, I convinced myself it was just my metabolism changing with age. Maybe this is just how things are supposed to be in your 60s. I rationalized. Then there were the aches, deep, persistent aches in my abdomen that I attributed to everything except what they actually were. I must have pulled something gardening. Maybe I'm sleeping wrong. It's probably just stress. I became a master of creative explanations for symptoms that, looking back, were my body literally screaming for help. But the most telling sign, the one that makes me shake my head at my own denial, was how I started organizing my day around rest periods. Tasks that used to take me an hour were suddenly taking 3, not because they were harder, but because I needed to sit down and recover between activities. My social life started shrinking without me even realizing it. I stopped accepting invitations to dinner parties because I was too tired. I quit my book club because driving to meetings felt overwhelming. I canceled plans with friends more and more frequently, always with perfectly reasonable excuses that masked the truth. I simply didn't have the energy I used to have. And the scary part, I was so good at making excuses that I started believing them myself. But Emma saw through every single one of my rationalizations. During one of our weekly video calls, she stopped mid-conversation and said something that should have been a wake-up call. "Mom, you look different. Not just older, but different. Are you sure you're okay?" And my response, I laughed it off. I told her the camera quality wasn't good, that the lighting in my living room was terrible, that she was seeing things that weren't there. I had become so committed to my narrative of being fine that I was willing to gaslight my own daughter rather than admit something might be wrong. The breaking point came during Christmas of last year, and I need to tell you about this moment because it's going to illustrate something crucial about how the people who love us can see things we refuse to see ourselves. Emma came to visit for the holidays, and for the first time in months, she was seeing me in person, in natural light, moving around my own house, doing normal activities, and what she saw terrified her. She watched me struggle to carry groceries from the car to the kitchen, groceries that would have been nothing for me just a year earlier. She noticed how I gripped the stair railing like my life depended on it when going upstairs. She saw me wince when I thought no one was looking, saw me press my hand to my side when certain pains hit. But most importantly, she really looked at my face, at my eyes, at my skin color, and she saw things that I had been avoiding in mirrors for months. "Mom," she said on the second day of her visit, "your eyes look yellow, and I don't mean a little yellow, I mean really yellow. When did that start?" I brushed it off, blamed it on the lighting, said it was probably just dry eyes from the winter weather. But she wasn't buying it. She took out her phone, turned on the flashlight, and said, "Look at me, Mom. Really look." And for the first time, in months, I actually saw myself clearly. The yellowing wasn't subtle. It wasn't lighting. It was real, and it was obvious. That night, Emma sat me down for what she later called the most important conversation of our relationship. She had been doing research on her phone, looking up symptoms, reading medical websites, trying to understand what she was seeing. And she was scared. Really, genuinely scared in a way I had never seen her before, not even when she was a little girl having nightmares. "Mom," she said, her voice shaking, "I've been watching you decline for months, and I've been trying to respect your independence, trying not to be pushy. But I can't do that anymore. Something is really wrong, and if you don't get checked out, I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have saved you by being more insistent earlier." The tears in her eyes, the desperation in her voice, that's when my wall of denial finally started to crack. But even then, even faced with my daughter's obvious distress, I tried to negotiate. "Okay, I'll make an appointment after the holidays. Let me finish this project first. Maybe in a few weeks when things calm down." Every delay tactic in the book, because deep down, I think I knew that once I walked into that doctor's office, my carefully constructed world of everything is fine was going to come crashing down. Emma wasn't having it. She pulled out her phone, right there at my kitchen table, and started calling doctor's offices. "We need an emergency appointment," she said. "My mother hasn't had a checkup in 2 years, and she's showing symptoms that concern me." When the first office said they couldn't see me for 3 weeks, she called another. When that one said 2 weeks, she called another. She called 7 different offices until she found one that would see me the next day. I'll never forget that car ride to Dr. Peterson's office. Emma drove because she didn't trust me not to turn around and go home. I spent the entire 20-minute drive complaining about wasting everyone's time, about overreacting, about doctors who just want to run expensive tests. But underneath all that complaining, I was terrified, because for the first time in months, I was allowing myself to consider the possibility that Emma might be right. Dr. Peterson had been my physician for over a decade, but I hadn't seen him for a comprehensive exam in almost 2 years. The look on his face when I walked into his office told me everything I needed to know. He didn't need to run tests to see that something was seriously wrong. It was written all over my appearance, my posture, the way I moved. But he's a professional, so he went through the motions of asking about symptoms, taking my history, doing a physical examination. "Sarah," he said after listening to my heart and checking my lymph nodes, "I'm going to be honest with you. Based on what I'm seeing and what your daughter has told me about changes in your behavior and appearance, I'm very concerned. We need to run some tests immediately. Blood work, imaging, possibly more depending on what we find." The way he said immediately, not next week, not when it's convenient, but immediately, that's when I knew my world of denial was about to end. The blood draw was extensive. Vials and vials of blood for tests I'd never heard of, complete metabolic panel, liver function tests, tumor markers, inflammation indicators, the list went on and on. Then came the CT scan, which was scheduled for that same afternoon because Dr. Peterson had called in a favor to get me squeezed in. Emma held my hand in the waiting room, both of us pretending to read magazines while our minds raced through every possible scenario. The waiting was torture. Not just the waiting for results, but the waiting while forced to confront the reality that I might have been very, very wrong about my health. All those months of dismissing symptoms, of making excuses, of insisting I was fine, they suddenly felt incredibly naive and potentially dangerous. I found myself mentally reviewing every symptom I had ignored, every sign I had dismissed, wondering how I could have been so blind to my own body. Dr. Peterson called us back into his office 2 days later. 2 days that felt like 2 months. Emma came with me, and I was grateful for her presence because I had a feeling I was going to need the support. Dr. Peterson had a folder thick with test results, and the expression on his face was not the expression of someone about to deliver good news. "Sarah, I need you to sit down for this," he said, which is never what you want to hear from your doctor. "The blood tests show severely elevated liver enzymes, numbers that are far outside the normal range. Your bilirubin levels explain the yellowing in your eyes and skin, and the CT scan has revealed multiple masses on your liver that shouldn't be there." The room started spinning. Emma grabbed my hand, and all I could think was how right she had been and how wrong I had been. "The masses are consistent with hepatocellular carcinoma, liver cancer," Dr. Peterson continued. "Based on the size and characteristics, I'd estimate this has been developing for at least 6 to 8 months, possibly longer. The good news, if we can call it that, is that we appear to have caught it before it has spread extensively to other organs. But Sarah, if you had waited much longer, if your daughter hadn't insisted on this appointment, we would be having a very different conversation. Liver cancer. Stage 2. The words hit me like a physical blow. All those months of insisting I was fine, of dismissing my daughter's concerns, of avoiding medical care, and this entire time, cancer had been growing inside me, stealing my energy, destroying my appetite, slowly but surely taking over my body. The irony was devastating. I had been so afraid of doctors finding problems that didn't exist that I had ignored a problem that very much did exist and was potentially fatal. "What does this mean?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. And Dr. Peterson's response was both terrifying and hopeful. "It means we need to act quickly, but it also means we have options, because we caught this when we did. Sarah is a candidate for surgical resection combined with chemotherapy. Her age and overall health, despite the cancer, make her a good candidate for aggressive treatment." If this had gone undetected for another 6 months or a year, he didn't need to finish that sentence. We all understood what he was saying. My stubborn refusal to get checked, my insistence that I was fine, my dismissal of every symptom, it could have been a death sentence. Would have been a death sentence if not for Emma's persistence. Her refusal to accept my excuses, her willingness to be the bad guy who forced me to face reality. The next few months were the hardest of my life, but they were also the most eye-opening. Surgery to remove the tumors, followed by 6 months of chemotherapy that left me sicker than I had ever been in my life. But you know what got me through it? The knowledge that we had caught it in time, that I had options, that I had a fighting chance because my daughter had refused to give up on me when I had given up on myself. The chemotherapy was brutal. There's no sugarcoating that. Days when I couldn't keep food down, weeks when I was too weak to get out of bed, moments when I questioned whether the treatment was worse than the disease. But Emma was there for every appointment, every treatment, every moment when I felt like giving up. And during those long hours in the chemo chair, I had plenty of time to think about how differently things could have gone. I thought about all the warning signs I had ignored, the fatigue that I attributed to aging, the weight loss that I had actually been proud of, the loss of appetite that I dismissed as changing taste preferences, the abdominal pain that I blamed on everything except what it actually was. Each symptom, in isolation, seemed manageable, explainable, normal, but taken together, they painted a clear picture of someone whose body was in distress. More importantly, I thought about my daughter's persistence and what it must have cost her emotionally to keep pushing me when I kept pushing back. The worry she must have felt watching me decline while I insisted everything was fine. The frustration of seeing symptoms that concerned her while I dismissed every single one. The fear that she might lose her mother because her mother was too stubborn to take care of herself. 6 months after my diagnosis, I had my first follow-up scan. Clean. No evidence of remaining cancer. The surgery had successfully removed all visible tumors, and the chemotherapy had eliminated any cancer cells that might have been circulating in my system. I was officially in remission, with an excellent prognosis for long-term survival, all because we caught it when we did. But here's the thing that haunts me, and the thing I want every single person watching this to understand. If Emma hadn't been so persistent, if she had given up after the first year of my resistance, if she had decided to respect my wishes and stop nagging me about medical care, I would be dead right now. Not sick, not struggling, not fighting, dead. The cancer would have spread, treatment options would have disappeared, and my family would be planning my funeral instead of celebrating my recovery. That realization changed everything for me. Not just about medical care, but about the role our loved ones play in keeping us alive and healthy. We tell ourselves that we're independent, that we know our own bodies, that we can make our own decisions about when and whether to seek medical care. But the truth is, we all have blind spots. We all have the capacity for denial. We all have the ability to rationalize away symptoms that scare us. The people who love us, our children, our spouses, our close friends, they see us with different eyes. They notice changes that we've adapted to gradually. They spot warning signs that we've learned to ignore. They love us enough to risk making us angry by insisting we take care of ourselves. And sometimes, that love and persistence is literally the difference between life and death. Now, a year and a half after my diagnosis, I'm healthy, active, and more grateful than I've ever been in my life. Grateful for successful treatment, grateful for skilled doctors, grateful for medical technology that can catch cancer early enough to treat it effectively, but most of all, grateful for a daughter who loved me enough to refuse to accept my excuses, who cared more about my health than about my comfort, who risked our relationship to save my life. This brings me to why I'm telling you this story, and why I need every person over 50 who's watching this to really listen to what I'm about to say. You might be sitting there thinking that this is a dramatic story that happened to someone else, that your situation is different, that you would know if something was seriously wrong with your health. That's exactly what I thought. That confidence, that certainty that you'd know if something was wrong, it's dangerous, and it's potentially deadly. Cancer doesn't always announce itself with obvious symptoms. Heart disease can develop silently for years. Diabetes can damage your organs long before you feel sick. High blood pressure is called the silent killer for a reason. Your body is incredibly good at adapting to problems, at compensating for failing systems, at maintaining function even when something is seriously wrong. By the time symptoms become obvious enough that you can't ignore them, it's often too late for the most effective treatments. Regular medical checkups aren't about finding problems where none exist. They're about finding problems before they become catastrophic. They're about catching treatable conditions while they're still treatable. They're about giving yourself the best possible chance at a long, healthy life with the people you love. I know what some of you are thinking right now. I feel fine. I don't have time. I can't afford it. Doctors just want to run expensive tests. If something was really wrong, I'd know. I thought all of those things too. They're comfortable lies we tell ourselves to avoid confronting the reality that our bodies aren't invincible, that age brings vulnerability, that prevention is always better than treatment. But let me ask you this. What's the real cost of not knowing? What's the price of that phone call your family might have to make because you waited too long? What's the value of even one more year with your children or grandchildren? What's the worth of being there for the milestones you haven't experienced yet? Graduations, weddings, the birth of grandchildren you haven't met. If you haven't had a comprehensive physical exam in the past year, you're gambling with your life and your family's future. If you've been dismissing symptoms because they seem minor or explainable, you're playing a dangerous game. If your loved ones have been expressing concern about your health and you've been brushing off those concerns, you're ignoring the people who are most motivated to keep you alive and healthy. The statistics are sobering, and I want you to hear them because they might shock you into action. Every year in the United States, hundreds of thousands of people die from diseases that could have been treated effectively if caught early. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, complications, conditions that have excellent survival rates when detected in their early stages become death sentences when ignored too long. But here's the hopeful part of those statistics. Early detection saves lives. Regular screening catches problems while they're still manageable. Routine blood work identifies risk factors before they become crises. Annual exams establish baselines that help doctors spot changes before they become dangerous. The difference between a treatable condition and a terminal diagnosis is often nothing more than timing. And if cost is a concern, let me share something that might change your perspective. The cost of prevention is always, always less than the cost of treatment. A comprehensive annual physical, including basic blood work and age-appropriate screening, costs a fraction of what cancer treatment costs. It costs less than cardiac surgery. It costs less than diabetic complications. More importantly, it costs far less than the emotional price your family will pay if you wait too long. For those of you who are watching this and thinking about a parent, grandparent, or spouse who's been avoiding medical care, I want to speak directly to you. Be like my Emma. Be persistent. Be loving but firm. Be willing to risk making them angry in the short term to keep them alive in the long term. Don't accept "I feel fine" as an answer when you can see that they don't look fine. Don't let them dismiss symptoms that concern you. Don't respect their independence more than you value their life. Sometimes, love means being the person who makes the appointment and drives them to it. Sometimes caring means being the nagging child or grandchild who won't let their loved one ignore their health. Sometimes family responsibility means overruling someone's preferences to protect their future. It's not easy, and it's not comfortable, but it's necessary. And if you're the person who's been avoiding medical care, if you recognize yourself in my story of denial and rationalization, please understand that your health isn't just about you. Every person who loves you has a stake in your well-being. Your children need you to be around to give advice and support. Your grandchildren need you to be present for their milestones. Your spouse needs you to be their partner for all the years you promised each other. Your community needs your experience, your wisdom, your contributions. The world is better with you in it, but only if you're here, alive and healthy, to make those contributions. Taking care of your health isn't selfish. It's one of the most generous things you can do for everyone whose life you touch. Make the appointment, get the blood work done, have the conversation with your doctor about any changes you've noticed, no matter how small they seem. Listen to your family when they express concern. Stop making excuses and start taking action, because the alternative, the phone call Emma might have had to make if we'd waited another 6 months, is unthinkable. Today, I'm cancer-free, healthy, and grateful every single day for my daughter's persistence. Emma literally saved my life by refusing to let me ignore my own body's warnings. Someone in your life might be trying to save yours right now. The question is, are you going to listen to them? Or are you going to be as stubborn as I was? Don't wait for a wake-up call like mine. Don't gamble with your family's future. Don't let pride or fear or inconvenience cost you years of your life. Make that appointment today. Your future self, and everyone who loves you, will thank you for it. Because the most important checkup is the one you get before you think you need it. Asterisk if Sarah's story resonated with you, if you saw yourself in her denial, her excuses, or her close call, then you need to subscribe to Senior Health today, right now. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we're building a community of people who refuse to gamble with their health and their family's future. Every week, we share real stories from real people over 50 who've learned life-changing lessons about health, prevention, and the warning signs that too many of us ignore. Stories like Sarah's that could literally save your life or the life of someone you love. Don't let YouTube's algorithm decide whether you see content that could be the difference between early detection and a devastating diagnosis. In our next video, I'm sharing the story of Robert, a 72-year-old grandfather who ignored chest pain for months because he thought it was just heartburn. What happened during his routine emergency room visit will shock you. And the simple test that saved his life is something every man over 65 should demand from their doctor. You won't want to miss it. And if you know someone who needs to, here's Sarah's message. A parent who's been putting off their annual physical, a spouse who keeps making excuses about that concerning symptom, or a friend who insists they're fine when clearly they're not. Share this video with them right now. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is be persistent, just like Emma was with her mother. Leave a comment below and tell us, have you been putting off a medical checkup? Has a family member been expressing concern about your health that you've been dismissing? Your story might be the wake-up call someone else needs to hear. This community thrives on honest, real conversations about the health challenges we face as we age. Senior Health Today isn't just a YouTube channel. We're a movement of people who believe that growing older doesn't mean giving up on our health. We believe in the power of early detection, the importance of listening to our loved ones, and the truth that prevention is always better than treatment. Subscribe now. because your health story is still being written, and we want to help you. Make sure it has the ending you and your family deserve. Don't be a statistic. Be like Sarah, someone who caught a problem in time because they finally listened to the people who love them most. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the thousands of viewers who are taking control of their health, one video at a time. Your future self will thank you for it.